Hey everybody, Ian here. Welcome back to White Pine Living. Hey, I wanted to spend some time and deal with a bit of a hot issue that's come up. We've been talking about city finances. It's been kind of a big topic in the news and kind of around town. I want to introduce you to my father. This is Kelly Bullis.
How you doing?
He's a certified public accountant out of Carson City, has a branch office right here in Ely. In fact, we're sitting in it right now. And we actually use this screen behind us. He Skypes in and meets with the clients when he's not up here visiting his grandchildren. And he can meet with you face to face when he's here. But with all this stuff buzzing around, he deals with nonprofits and businesses. And he owns a family firm that was founded by my grandfather in 1965. They have a deep root in dealing with forensic accounting and small business accounting, small business bookkeeping, and so this is kind of in your wheelhouse. And so just some of the casual conversations I've had with him, I thought some of these people need to hear what you have to say and some of your perspectives on this. So I'm just going to quote. I'm embarrassed to say I didn't read the article you did, but just reading it for the first time myself. What happened is the city hired a new treasurer back on March 27th, and to quote the article from the Ely Times, it says, "Since then, she has spent the majority of her time correcting severe financial errors that have occurred over the last few years." That's kind of strong language. Severe financial errors. So I guess my first question to you deal with small business, you deal with nonprofits, you guys have a bookkeeping department in your firm, you do audits, you do forensic accounting and find people that are doing wrong things. Based upon what you've seen, you have the audit report.
Yep.
Is this abnormal? Are these errors, is this outside the scope of what normally happens?
No, absolutely not. I think you could go to all of the publicly traded companies and all the way down. There are adjusting journal entries and errors that are found sometime throughout the year. Sometimes the auditor finds it. Sometimes a larger organization has an internal auditor. A smaller organization like Ely has a treasurer. There are different people who are appointed to kind of be overseeing and looking for errors, and that's a normal occurrence.
Okay, so nothing too crazy is going on.
No.
A lot of terminology gets tossed around that I don't think a lot of people really understand, including myself. What are they talking about when they're dealing with funds? Funds. Funds. This fund balance, that fund balance. What's going on?
In all my travels in accounting, I think the most complicated and backwards type of accounting is governmental accounting.
Shock.
I think somebody who was a demented person on some sort of drugs came up with the idea of inventing governmental accounting. It's not the normal way a business or any normal organization keeps their books. It's almost a quadruple set of entries. You have to enter the same number 4 times instead of 2 times in governmental accounting. And it's easy to miss where it goes. But we have these funds, or they're buckets, where we categorize where money comes and where it goes. Now, in the city of Ely, as an example, you have 2 groupings of activities going on. One is the regular governmental activity, and the other is what we call enterprise activity. That would be water, sewer, and landfill. About half of the total gross receipts for the city goes to those enterprise funds, water, sewer, and landfill, which are run like a business.
Gross receipts meaning income.
The income coming in. Okay. Income coming in, and the expenses are going out are going to running your water, sewer, and landfill. Half of the activities of the city. The other half covers everything: the police, the fire, the judicial, the courts, the health and welfare, etc. And of those other half, the government side, there are 2 kinds of ways of designating money. One is what we call restricted, which means it can only be spent on what it was supposed to be. An example, you got a grant to buy a new fire truck. You can only spend that money buying a new fire truck. You can't save some of that money by getting a good deal on the fire truck and then spend the rest on something else. It's got to be spent on a fire truck. And sometimes people go, that's stupid. That's the way government works. They are not interested in saving money. They're interested in spending it exactly the way they were told. So that's restricted money. Unrestricted, which is the majority of the government side of the activities, the non-water, sewer, and landfill, everything else, is under the discretion or control of the city government. They have meetings throughout the year where they listen to pros and cons of should we spend the money here or should we spend it there. Some of that is restricted, like they are required to put money into retirement for the city employees. And so that was almost be restricted in the fact that they have to do it. They don't have a choice. Of the discretionary money that the city has to spend, it's a small number.
But they have some to spend.
They do. And when you look at the audit report, they're doing just fine with it.
Okay. So, and it's just some of the meetings that I've been to, the gossip around town, a lot of what's getting thrown around is that there's been some wrongdoing, some embezzlement or things like that. Your firm deals with embezzlement almost every week. You're dealing with people, you're finding things, getting hired by attorneys or doing bookkeeping. You guys live and breathe this stuff. What's your opinion about that? Do you see any embezzlement or wrongdoing going on in the city?
Well, Ian, first of all, I wasn't hired to go into the city's records or to do anything, but for anybody in this city, all you have to do is refer to this audit report that was issued by the auditors for the June 30th, 2016 year end. This audit report was issued on January 25th of just this year. It was presented to the city government.
You can print that off right off the
You can go to their website and print it off, and if you are having trouble sleeping, it's really great reading to make you go to sleep. But in this, to explain, an auditor is required to make inquiries, to test the accounting functions, or what we call internal controls, and to see if it looks like there is a possibility of fraud or embezzlement or misstatement of assets going on. If the auditor finds that and they think it's material, they will state that in the letter that goes at the very front, that they are not saying that the financial condition of the city is reflected in its books. In fact, this audit report gives a clean opinion to the city saying that its accounting records materially reflect the financial condition of the city, and they found no fraud or embezzlement. Now, they did point out a problem. Now, I think it's interesting at the very back. It's always hidden at the back. The good stuff's always in the back. They basically said, regarding the city's internal control, they found several errors that resulted in a change to fund balances at the beginning of the year. Those changes included, and they go on to list them. Then they make a recommendation, because the big change had to do with accruing pension liability for the city employees. They recommended that the city perform a more thorough review of its pension reporting requirements and how to compute their contributions that are required. And the city said, we will do that. They also said that the city needs to work on its year-end accounting processes and review them to start tightening up the controls to make sure things are recorded a little better.
In other words,
the city said they would do that.
In other words, the auditor found several errors and told the city to do a better job of doing their books.
But let's go over this. The auditor did not find material errors that significantly changed the financial reporting of the city. They found errors, but they were within the realm of the kind of errors you'd normally find. And they suggested that the city tighten the screws down a little bit on their accounting procedures and try and eliminate as many of these errors as possible. Which, when I read the article, I kind of chuckled, because that's exactly what the city did in March. They hired this treasurer back that had worked for them before, who apparently is very good at what she does. And she's found some errors and she's cleaning things up. But it does not mean that the city's in dire straits. In fact, it looks like it's very healthy financially.
So that would be a no to my next question, which was, how is the city doing? Is the city in trouble financially?
Absolutely not.
In fact, the quote is, the recommendation is the city needs to go into survival mode.
I would think that's an overreaction. Like anybody, let me kind of put it this way. You have a bank balance at the beginning of the year for your family budget.
Okay.
And let's say you had $60,000. That's probably way more than most of us would have, but I'm just going to use a number that's approximately what the city's was. Let's say you had $60,000 and your salary coming in and your mortgage and all your expenses going out. You would have $60,000 left at the end of the year if you just broke even. But you say to yourself, do I really need $60,000 sitting in the bank? Or could I spend it on fixing the roof on my house or buying a new car or some of the things that I've been deferring because I didn't have the money in the past? And so I spend some of that $60,000. So at the end of the year, I only have $25,000. I still have a pretty good bank balance, don't I?
Yeah.
But I spent some of it on things that I thought were necessary for my family. The city has done basically the same thing. They started with a bank balance of a little over $600,000. And they ended with about $250,000. During the year, it appears that the city decided they needed to spend some of that money on important things, and they chose to do so. That does not put the city in financial dire straits. It just says that your city government is trying to do the best they can with the money they have and not being greedy and leaving it all in the bank when it could have been spent on things that needed to be spent.
So you've already sort of touched on it, but you do a lot of small business coaching. That was your gig before you took over the family business, was coaching small businesses, helping them to run well. And you still work with lots of nonprofits and businesses. Do you have any recommendations just to the city about how to do better? Is there anything you can see that just seems like they could be coached on?
Well, my thoughts are, geez, what is Ely, like the 12th largest city in the state? Somewhere in that ballpark. There's smaller cities and there's larger cities. Most cities all struggle with their accounting procedures need to be tightened up. There's always somebody saying we haven't got enough money. We need to do more than we're doing. There's always a lot of people who disagree with where the city spends their money. We should have fixed more potholes versus building an addition to the hospital or whatever. There's always going to be disagreements. That's normal. But what you have is a functioning government that seems to be working pretty well. The financial condition of the city looks like it's actually quite fine. They've taken steps per the auditor's recommendations, which is a good sign. It says that they listened to the auditor and they said, okay, we can do better. Let's try to do better. I don't see any major disaster here. I see a pretty functional government and everybody trying to do a good job because this is a great city.
That's awesome. All right. Well, that's, I would say that's a very different perspective than at least what I had been hearing and what seems to be going around. I hope that encourages you guys. And like he said, you can go right onto the city's website and download the audit report if you're willing and able to read such a thing. I'm going to have contact info for Kelly if you'd like to get in touch with him if you have further questions. And anything else you want to add?
No, I just love Ely. It's one of my favorite places to visit.
That's awesome. We will see you guys next time.